Hello, I'm Marvin Patton, and I teach child development for Merced College. Earlier this year, my college was accepted into the OEI consortium in the equity-focused cohort. We were all pretty excited to be accepted, and we wanted to jump in with both feet. So I began to think about what could I do to improve equity at Merced College for my online students. I was somewhat familiar with a great online learning tool called EdPuzzle, and I was very curious about a new tool in Canvas called Mastery Paths. So I began wondering, could it be possible that EdPuzzle could be combined with Mastery Paths to produce a strategy that would promote equity? What if there was an automatic process that was fun and easy for students that could reteach content and help increase scores for low-performing students? Hey, wait a minute. I think I might have an idea to share with you. Okay, so let's talk about more details about combining EdPuzzle with Mastery Paths as a reteaching strategy in Canvas. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, EdPuzzle is a tool that allows you to upload a video and then you can insert narration, or if you look at these green markers here, you can insert questions about the video content at strategic locations. But why would anybody want to use EdPuzzle? What are the benefits of it? Well, you know the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and so a video must be worth even more than that. You can use any educational video from a wide variety of sources: YouTube, Khan Academy, teacher-created videos, and so forth. You can add audio notes and questions at strategic locations in the video. It's very easy to use. It's self-pacing and reviewable for the students. They can watch it over and over again on their own schedule. And consider the course design rubric criterion A10 about individualized learning. This creates another individualized learning opportunity. This can be used as a remedial activity. So, you may be wondering, does EdPuzzle work in Canvas? Is it compatible? Yes, indeed. In fact, instructors have worked out procedures whereby an EdPuzzle can be embedded directly into a Canvas quiz. Now that opens up some very interesting possibilities. If you search YouTube, you'll find examples of how Canvas has been used together with EdPuzzle. Okay, so now what is this Canvas Mastery Paths? This is something I understand not many instructors are using, but it's a system by which you can automatically redirect your lower scoring students after an assessment to do some supplementary work for additional credit. The instructor can decide what level of score the students will be redirected upon, whether 70% or 50% and so forth. To find Mastery Paths, you can check under the feature options and select Mastery Paths. It's in a beta state right now, but it's selectable under Mastery Paths in the feature options in Canvas. All right, so a basic schema for Mastery Paths at a level that the instructor designates, let's say, for example, 70%, there's no further remediation required. You just assume that your student has passed and they can go on, so they're not redirected to a mastery path. You may have a second tier of students whom you consider to have barely passed the exam or the assessment. Let's say this is, for example, 60%, and you want them to do a little better than that. So you're going to redirect them to one or more remedial assignments and assign them some additional credit. Now, let's say you have students who just flat out failed the assessment. They're in the failing zone. You may want to redirect them for even more, a higher level of remediation than even this middle tier was redirected toward. And you may want to add a few more points here. So this is the basic schema. Passing, they just move on. If they sort of barely pass, there can be one level of remediation. And for those who did very poorly, there can be a second level of remediation. All right, so the remedial activities can be basically any kind of assignment. That's where EdPuzzle comes in. EdPuzzle quizzes can be used as the remedial activity. So, for example, if my students pass with an acceptable percentage, they move on and they don't have any remediation. But for that middle tier of students who barely passed, I might assign them to do 1 or 2 EdPuzzle quizzes or something like that. And for the students who failed, I'll have them do a little more. Maybe they'll do 2 or 3 EdPuzzle quizzes. Again, they get to recover some points and improve their score. And also, while they're watching the EdPuzzles, they're relearning the material, or perhaps learning it for the first time. All right, so why would we want to use these two in combination in this way? Well, if we consider the course design rubric, criterion A7 is about effective use of CMS tools. And Mastery Paths, that's a Canvas tool. It's built into the CMS, and it's definitely innovative. There aren't very many instructors who are using Mastery Paths at this time. Or consider criterion A8, student-centered teaching. Technology is used creatively to emphasize student-centered learning throughout the course. So this is a creative way to emphasize student-centered learning. And consider also criterion A10, individualized learning. This is another method by which you can have remedial activities for those underperforming students or for those students who really struggled on your assessment. So do we have any other reasons why we might try this strategy? Well, for example, this gives students a second chance to go back and restudy the content and improve on their score. This promotes equity for those lower performing students. I was a tutor many years ago at College of Alameda, and what I found to be true was that students sometimes, they get it if you explain it in a different way. If you show it to them one way, maybe they don't quite get it. But if you make an analogy or put it in a different context, sometimes that's what makes the light come on. Okay, so if the students are not getting the material by reading the book or using traditional methods, it could be that the EdPuzzle content is exactly what they need in order to improve their comprehension and get the concepts. When you have questions in the video, they're strategically associated with short content segments. That gives the student the chance to focus and comprehend. So they listen to a video segment, and immediately after that, you pose a question to them. They'll have a better chance of recalling and getting the context and understanding and making that association between the content and the principle behind it. And finally, when you're using Canvas quizzes, you have automatic scoring, and that gives instant feedback to the students, and it reduces your labor as the instructor. Now, as I said before, any assignment could potentially be used in Mastery Paths. You could assign them, for example, to write a reflection or write a paper or do something like that. But I recommend doing something that can be automatically graded, because if you use something that needs instructor grading, then the student will have to wait for your feedback before they can advance. Okay, so here's a specific example that I used in my Child Development 1. That's my Child Growth and Development class. I offered a 60-point exam, and the focus of this particular exam was the domains of infant and toddler development. So I wanted my students to learn something about the cognitive skills of infants and toddlers, something about their social and emotional development, and also something about their physical development. So the remediation I had for this 60-point exam was I created 3 EdPuzzles with the focuses as you see here. Okay, so one of the keys to making this work in Canvas is to redirect the questions from the EdPuzzle video into the Canvas quiz. Now let me explain to you what I mean. When you watch an EdPuzzle, when the video progresses to one of the green question markers, that's where a question would be embedded in the EdPuzzle video if you're using an EdPuzzle as a standalone. So a question would pop up on the screen immediately adjacent to the video. And if you're using EdPuzzle standalone, that question would be pertinent to what was just viewed in the video. However, for this strategy, what the question does is it redirects the student to a Canvas quiz that's below the video. So you get the picture. The EdPuzzle is embedded into the Canvas quiz as content. They view the video and then answer the questions in the Canvas quiz below. So in this case, it's redirecting the students to question 1 in the Canvas quiz below, which is, how did the baby react when she saw that there were 3 Mickey dolls revealed from behind the screen instead of only 2? Now the student is going to select whichever answer they believe is the correct answer. And after doing that, they return to the EdPuzzle panel and they click yes, indicating that they've now answered the question. And then they're going to click the submit button here. And then after that, they will be able to continue on to the rest of the video content. Okay, so how does this look in Canvas? What's the view from Canvas? Again, no remediation on this test at 42 points, which is my 70% marker. And for the barely passing level, that's at 36 points, equivalent to 60%. So this is my first level of remediation. And then I have a second level of remediation here from 0 points on up to just below that barely passing. Okay, so students fail if they got less than 60%, all right? And then students are directed to either of these 2 levels based on their scores. Now you'll notice that for the first level of remediation, I'm going to assign them to 2 EdPuzzles. You saw that I created 3. At this first level, I assigned them to take 2 of the EdPuzzle quizzes. At the second level of remediation, I require them to take the 3 EdPuzzle quizzes. And you notice they score 3 points for each of the quizzes. All right, and you may also notice in this instance, I also asked them to complete an opinion survey about their experience doing mastery paths. This is something new that I was using, and I wanted to know, how do students feel about it? So altogether, in the first tier, students could recover 9 points. All right, and that's fairly significant. That's like 15% of the total value of the exam. Students in the second tier could recover 12 points, and that's like 20% of the exam. Okay, so who gets helped by this? Again, this was a child growth and development class. This is 100% online in Canvas. I just taught this class in summer term, and I tell you, we were blazing. We had to cover 3 units worth of material in just 6 weeks. Normally, this is taught in a semester, and our semesters are 18 weeks, but we had to get through it in just 6 weeks. So this was a unit exam in infant and toddler development worth 60 points. The D range students were able to add 9 points, and that's 15%. Students in the F range added 12 points, that's 20%. And even if the student refused to take the test or didn't take the test and earned a 0, they could still recover 12 points. And I had the quizzes set so that you take it till you make it. In other words, you repeat the quiz until you get 100%. You can see that 38 of my students, more than half, passed just fine, and they went on without being remediated. I had 14 students out of 74 who were in that first tier, and then 10 out of 74 students scored in that second tier. And evidently there were 10 other students who didn't take the exam. But even they could recover 12 points, which is better than none. All right, now as you recall, I launched a satisfaction survey to the students to find out what was their reaction to mastery paths. As you recall, one of our quality criteria is A11, learner feedback. There are opportunities to give anonymous feedback both during course delivery and after course completion. So I'm going to turn it over now to my statistician, Graphic Stan, to tell you a little bit about the survey results. I'm Marvin Patton, and I teach child development for Merced College. If you have any questions about the presentation, please email marvin.patton@mccd.edu. Thanks for watching.